What if the reason you can't lose belly fat has nothing to do with your diet, your workouts, or your willpower? What if the real decision, the one your body makes about whether to burn fat or store it, is already being made before you've even had breakfast, before your first sip of coffee, before you've said a single word to another human being? Most people spend years trying harder, eating less, exercising more, cutting out entire food groups, and still that stubborn layer around their midsection refuses to move. And the frustrating part is that they're doing everything they were told to do. So why isn't it working? The answer lies in a window of time that almost nobody talks about. A biological event that happens every single morning inside your body, whether you're aware of it or not. And what you do or don't do during that window is silently determining whether your body is going to protect its fat or release it for the rest of the day. Here's what nobody tells you. Your body is not a simple calculator. It's not just burning fat when calories go down and storing fat when calories go up. It's a deeply intelligent, highly sensitive survival machine that is constantly reading signals from your environment. It's asking questions every single moment. Am I safe? Are resources available? Is this a time to conserve energy or spend it? And the answers to those questions don't come from what you eat at lunch. They come from what happens in the first 45 to 60 minutes after you open your eyes in the morning. That window is when your body sets the tone for the entire day, hormonally, neurologically, and metabolically. And for the vast majority of people, they're unknowingly sending the worst possible signals during that exact window. Not because they're doing anything dramatic, but because of two completely normal, completely ordinary habits that almost everyone on the planet shares. To understand why this matters so deeply, you need to understand something called the cortisol awakening response. Every morning, your body deliberately produces a surge of cortisol. This is completely natural and completely necessary. Cortisol is what wakes your brain up. It raises your blood sugar slightly, mobilizes energy, sharpens your focus, and gets your system prepared to face the day. Think of it like your body's internal alarm clock, except instead of a loud buzzing sound, it's a hormone flooding your system to say, okay, it's time to go. In a healthy scenario, cortisol peaks within the first 30 minutes after waking and then gradually declines. As it falls, the body shifts into a more relaxed, restorative state. Fat-burning pathways open up. The nervous system settles. Blood sugar stabilizes. Everything works the way it's supposed to. The problem is that for most people, that cortisol never gets the chance to fall, and that changes everything. When cortisol stays elevated beyond that natural peak, your body does not interpret that as a minor inconvenience. It interprets it as a threat. And when the body senses a threat, especially in the morning when it's most vulnerable and most sensitive, it makes one decision above all others. It protects its energy stores. Now here's where belly fat becomes the center of the story. Abdominal fat is not the same as fat anywhere else on your body. The fat cells around your midsection contain a significantly higher density of cortisol receptors than fat cells in your arms, your legs, or your back. This is evolutionary biology. Your body stores fat near your vital organs when it feels threatened, because that's where energy can be accessed fastest in an emergency. So when cortisol stays high in the morning, belly fat receives the loudest, strongest, most direct signal of all. Stay. You are needed. Do not leave. And your body listens to that signal faithfully every single day. Here's the part that really changes how you see this whole picture. Your body cannot tell the difference between a genuinely life-threatening situation and the stress of reading a work email at 7 in the morning. From a biological standpoint, those two things feel identical. Your nervous system doesn't have a category for modern stress. It only knows one kind of stress, the kind that requires a physical response, the kind that required your ancestors to either fight or flee. So when you pick up your phone the moment you wake, when you see a notification that demands your attention. Now let's talk about the second mistake, because this one is almost universal, and it's one that people are genuinely shocked by when they hear the truth about it. Drinking coffee the moment you wake up. Before you get defensive, this isn't about giving up coffee. Coffee isn't the enemy here. Timing is. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain when you wake up. While you were sleeping, a chemical called adenosine was slowly building up. Adenosine is your brain's natural sleep pressure signal. The more it accumulates, the sleepier you feel. After you wake, your body needs a window of time, usually somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes, to naturally clear that adenosine. When that process completes, you experience a clean, natural sense of wakefulness. Your brain is ready, your nervous system is stable, and if you have coffee at that point, it works beautifully, blocking adenosine at exactly the right time and giving you a clean, sustained boost of energy and focus. But when you drink coffee immediately upon waking, you interrupt that natural clearance process before it's complete. You're essentially forcing your brain awake before the biological housekeeping is done. And what happens as a result is something most people have experienced but never connected to coffee timing. You feel awake, but you're not really awake. There's a slight edginess to it, a vague feeling of being wired but not quite grounded. And then later, usually somewhere between 10 in the morning and early afternoon, it crashes. You feel a sudden dip in energy, a craving for something sweet or starchy, a fog that seems to come out of nowhere. That's the debt being repaid. That's your body trying to compensate for the premature caffeine hit. And the way it compensates is by triggering a second cortisol spike, a secondary stress response that happens exactly when your body should be settling into fat-burning mode. For your belly fat, that second cortisol spike is a disaster. It's another signal saying, store, protect, hold on. What makes this situation so common and so hard to recognize is that these two mistakes, phone first and coffee immediately, are deeply intertwined in most people's morning routines. They're not separate habits, they're a sequence. You wake up, you reach for your phone, you scroll while the coffee brews, you drink the coffee while still on your phone, and by the time 30 minutes have passed, you've already flooded your nervous system with blue light, digital stimulation, decision-making, and premature caffeine. Your cortisol has been prevented from falling. Your belly fat has received its storage signal, and none of it felt alarming. None of it felt like a problem. It felt like a completely normal morning. That's what makes it so hard to address. The habits that are quietly working against your fat loss goals are the same ones that feel routine, even comforting. That's why so many people eat well, exercise hard, and still feel like they're fighting their own body, because in a very real sense, they are. So what does the right morning actually look like? What signals does your body need to shift out of protection mode and into the kind of physiological state where fat burning becomes natural and effortless? The first thing to understand is that you are not trying to add a bunch of new activities into your morning. You're trying to remove the signals that are creating unnecessary stress. You're trying to give your body the biological environment it needs to do what it actually wants to do, which is regulate your hormones, stabilize your blood sugar, and access stored energy for fuel. The first and most underestimated step is rehydration. After 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your body is mildly dehydrated, and mild dehydration is, from a biological standpoint, a genuine stressor. Your blood pressure shifts slightly, your adrenal glands have to work harder to maintain stability. Cortisol is used to compensate. Simply drinking a glass of water, ideally with a small pinch of natural salt or a squeeze of lemon for minerals, sends a signal to your adrenal system that resources are available and all is well. It's a tiny act with a surprisingly powerful hormonal consequence. The second signal your body is looking for in the morning is natural light. Not the light from your phone screen, not the artificial light in your bathroom. The third morning signal is gentle movement. And the word gentle here is doing a lot of important work. Many people, motivated and determined, will jump into an intense morning workout the moment they wake up, thinking that more effort equals more results. But a high-intensity workout in the morning, performed before the nervous system has transitioned properly from sleep, can actually register as an additional stressor. Not because exercise is bad, it's not, but because the context matters enormously. Your body, still in a slightly elevated cortisol state from the awakening response, interprets intense physical effort as escape behavior. It reinforces the idea that something threatening is happening. Gentle movement, on the other hand, sends the opposite message. A slow walk, especially outdoors, creates what neuroscientists call optic flow. As your eyes take in the scenery moving past you, the amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, naturally quiets down. Your sympathetic nervous system dials back. Your body receives the clearest possible signal. We are safe. We are in control. We can release what we've been holding. Now let's address the phone directly, because this is where most people push back. The suggestion isn't to never use your phone. It isn't to become some kind of digital monk who meditates for 2 hours every morning before touching technology. The suggestion is simply this: give your brain a buffer. The first 30 to 45 minutes after waking are not the right time for external input. Not because the information is necessarily dangerous, but because your nervous system hasn't yet established its foundation for the day. Think of it like building a house. If the foundation is poured while the ground is still wet and unstable, the structure above it will be compromised no matter how well it's built. Your morning nervous system state is that foundation. If it's established in calm, in safety, in rhythm, everything that comes after it, including the stressful emails, the demanding meetings, the afternoon challenges, will be processed differently. Your cortisol will rise and fall appropriately in response to actual demands, rather than staying chronically elevated as a defensive baseline. There's also something important to understand about how these signals compound over time. One morning of phone scrolling and early coffee won't destroy your fat loss progress, but a pattern of mornings, repeated day after day for weeks and months, teaches your body to expect stress from the moment it wakes up. Your nervous system is learning all the time. It's incredibly efficient at recognizing patterns. If every morning begins with urgency, stimulation, and cortisol being prolonged, your body begins to anticipate that. It starts waking up in a slightly elevated state before any stimulation even occurs. Your baseline cortisol level creeps up. Your body's default mode becomes conservation rather than release. This is one of the reasons why people who have been under chronic stress for years find fat loss so much more difficult. It's not just the stress of their life, it's the accumulated signal their body has learned to expect every single morning. Let's take a moment to talk about what happens downstream when you do successfully lower that morning cortisol, because the effects go far beyond just belly fat. When cortisol falls naturally after its awakening peak, an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase, HSL, becomes more active. HSL is essentially the key that unlocks your fat cells and allows fatty acids to be released into the bloodstream, where they can be used for energy. When cortisol is prolonged, a different enzyme dominates, lipoprotein lipase, or LPL. LPL does the opposite. It pulls fatty acids out of the bloodstream and into fat cells for storage. The balance between these two enzymes is significantly influenced by your cortisol levels throughout the day, and that balance is disproportionately shaped by what happens in the morning. When you get the morning right, HSL wins more often. When the morning sends a stress signal, LPL takes over. It's not about how hard you train, it's about which enzyme is in charge of your fat cells. Another downstream effect of lowering morning cortisol is what happens to your hunger and cravings throughout the day. This is something that a lot of people experience without understanding the cause. When cortisol remains elevated, blood sugar becomes less stable. The body, interpreting the elevated cortisol as a sign that energy might be needed urgently, tries to keep blood sugar high. But this produces a roller coaster effect. Blood sugar rises too high, insulin is released to bring it back down, blood sugar drops too far, and suddenly you're ravenous. You're craving something sweet or starchy. You feel like you have no willpower. You reach for something you told yourself you weren't going to eat, and then you feel guilty, like the problem is your discipline. But it's not. The craving was